What is up, good people? Hope y'all are having a great morning, day, night, whenever you're watching this. But this is the morning after show. I am Fran Harris. Fran Harris. My voice is kind of crazy right now. But what is not crazy is how good those games were yesterday. This is the morning after show. If this is your first time watching, I come on the day after a game or games and give my thoughts on what had happened in that game. So let's start. Let's go ahead and get this started, and let's start with the New York versus Connecticut game. Got my little handy notes here. But overall, I just thought that game went a little like I thought it was going to go, and that was going to be very grindy, very grimy for Connecticut, and I wondered what kind of problems that was going to cause New York. So I got a couple of notes for New York. Typically, we have like a format on the morning after show. It's like what was the summary, who were the stars, what had happened, see what had happened was, and then it is, what happens next. So we're going to follow that to some degree this morning because I jotted down some notes just as they were coming to my head. So first thing I noticed yesterday in the game with New York and Connecticut was the only way Connecticut's going to be able to win this series is if they make New York succumb to the way Connecticut plays. So they play grindy, they play grimy, they play hard, they want it to be ugly. And New York is more of a smooth, it's a smooth taste. It's very finessed. It's very, let's get our shooters open. Great sets, great coach. That's New York. It works for them. That's why they're in the position that they are in now. But what happens when a team that relies on smooth offense faces a team that just gets it however they get it defensively, it causes problems. So a couple of things I noticed yesterday was, number one, Stewie and Sabrina both were having a difficult time getting off shots that were not just in the regular rhythm of the offense. So yes, Sabrina got some good looks. She made some big threes. Stewie got a couple of things. Stewie didn't have a great offensive game, but partly the reason wasn't just that Stewie was off. That's not it. It's usually what happens, what the defense is making you do offensively. So they were really, really making the shots hard for Sabrina and for everybody, but for especially what they wanted to do was to make Stewie work for every shot she got. And y'all have heard that. You've heard announcers say that. You've probably said that yourself. But what you can't appreciate until you're in that situation is what toll it takes on you to have to work to get every shot you get. So Stewie usually comes off of a pick. She comes off of a reset. She comes off of a roll. Right? It's very smooth and nuanced kind of offense. And then, she shoots her shot and it's very beautiful to watch. Same thing with Sabrina. Give me a couple of screens, right? It's going down. When those two players, number one, have to put the ball on the deck, when they have to dribble, both of them are capable of doing it. But I'm going to say this for Sabrina. Sabrina's much better when she can just come off of a pick and shoot. She's not as effective when she comes off of a bounce. Stewie can do either one of them. But the point was constantly sending defenders at them, constantly getting them, Connecticut getting over picks and making those shots hard was taking its toll. And that's why Stewie was missing some of her shots. She was tired. Not just from the, people think it's from the season, from the previous thing. Yes, everybody's tired from the season and the previous series. But when you are in a game and you've got to labor for every shot you get, it's very difficult to have a great offensive day or night. So that's what happened with New York. The other thing that I think was really telling about the series with New York and Connecticut is how much Connecticut wants the game to go. They want it to be grimy and they want it to be grindy. And part of that approach and strategy is weighing on is talking to the officials, right? I see a lot of y'all complaining, probably not y'all, but people in groups complaining about how much Connecticut whines with the officials. That's intentional. That is absolutely intentional. It weighs on the officiating. It weighs on the team you're playing. And now you're playing the game the way we want it to be played. Now, have they sat down and, mapped out what I just said? Probably not. But they understand that you're going to be able to see the tendencies for the games to go in their favor because they literally are coloring, if you will, they are shadowing the entire game with the way they play, with as much conversation as they have with players and officials. It becomes a Connecticut style game. And in games where Connecticut is not able to really like overshadow the game, they're not as successful. So one of the things that New York has to do, because now we're moving to, okay, great. We know what happened. What had happened was, if we're New York, how do we turn this thing around in game 2? Number one, you've got to be ready to make shots off the bounce. You've got to be ready to make shots off the bounce, because Connecticut is not going to just let you shoot your smooth jumpers. Not Stewie, not Sabrina. That's not their game. They're going to bump you off those things. They're going to hedge hard. They're going to come out there. They're going to foul you. They'll take their fouls because it means that the game is going the way they want it to go. So if you're New York, I can talk this morning. If you're New York, you have got to come off those picks and be prepared to shoot quickly, and you've got to be prepared to take people off the bounce. Also, the other thing that made it difficult for New York to get it going offensively is that you're shooting over the outstretched hands of 6'4", 6'5", 6'3" all game, right? Made it very, very difficult. One of the things that made Connecticut successful is what I said in the previous series, which was DeWanna Bonner has to just stop launching threes. And what we saw in yesterday's game is that you saw much more offensive variety. You saw her taking people off the bounce. You saw her posting up people. You saw her dribbling around the pick instead of just coming off and shooting. It was very effective. She is like no other player in the league. And when she uses her full set of offensive skills, she's difficult. She's very difficult. She's a problem. I also said in the previous series that the guards, Heidemann, Allen, those people they got to show up. They have to show up in a very big way. And Heidemann blocked Stewie's shot. She shot, she made, the times I was literally watching intently, she made like 2 or 3 threes in a row. They have to be a force for Connecticut to actually win this game. So that's going to wrap up the New York Connecticut series. New York they've got to find a way to get shots, clean looks. They've got to find a way to get probably 1 to 2 dribble pull-ups for Stewie and Sabrina and the rest of their offensive players, because they're not going to get just clean looks without Connecticut fouling them. And number 3, they've got to make the complexion of the game favor the way they like to play. If they're New York, they've got to make the game play, the complexion be the smooth, the easy, the beautiful basketball that we've come to know all season. If you're Connecticut, you want it to go just like it went in game 1. You want them struggling to get the shot up without somebody hitting them on the elbow. Lots of calls were not called yesterday. I mean, this is what you got to have if you have any chance of beating Connecticut. You've got to be able to play through the foul. You've got to be able to withstand all the talking that they're doing with the officials. And, you've got to make sure that the officials, as I get my headband right, you got to make sure that the officials are getting it on both sides, right? So that all the calls are not just going to Connecticut. So that's game 1 from yesterday.